Hi, community groups. Good to see you all, or at least you're seeing me. This is our first video offering in our new series. It's all about the heart. And I trust that you'll get something significant out of this video as we track with the various points that we'll look at over the whole series. I really trust it's going to be something special for us. This week we're looking at how's it going with your heart in the area of pride versus humility. If there's one place that we'll be tripped up in life, it's right here, because it's such a base thing. It's a base issue. We're always confronting the option to be prideful. And over this whole series, we're going to be using our time in community groups to process what's gone on in the Sunday messages. And we're specifically going to apply it to the 5 elements of our Christian lives. That is worship, our relationship with God, fellowship, our relationship with one another, discipleship, our growth as a disciple of Jesus, ministry, the way we serve within the church, and then mission, the way we serve outside of the church and share the gospel of Christ. Okay, so it's worship, fellowship, discipleship, ministry, and mission. And you'll see it's going to give us a whole lot to talk about. The first thing I'd like you to speak about as a group is what is probably going to become our theme verse. It comes from Proverbs 4 verse 23, and it says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life." Above all else, so it's pretty important, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. In a general way, I'd like you to stop the video now and just discuss, what does this mean to you? Stop. Okay, so I trust that was a good start to at least warm up to the debate of the fact that it's all about the heart. As we go to Sunday morning, Trevor spoke about Samson, and he used Samson as an example of pride going very bad. And you can see that in Judges chapter 14 through to chapter 16. And then in the evening service, I used a story that comes from the world of ultramarathon runners. And both stories illustrate, while something may begin good, pride generally causes things to end badly. Most of you will know the Samson story, but for those of you who weren't in the evening service, let me give you a recap of the story I told. In Australia, there's a ultramarathon that is run from Sydney all the way to Melbourne. Now, for those of you who know, that's about a distance of 1,600 kilometers. It's not a walk in the park. And you can imagine that in a race like that, you don't get it finished in a day. It takes a number of days. And so what the runners do is they run for 18 hours. They need their heads read. They sleep for 6. And then they get up the next morning and they run for another 18, sleep 6, run for 18 until they finish. Quite a number of years ago, there was a runner by the name of Cliff Young. He entered the race. He was 61 years old. And he was from the Australian outback. And he wanted to compete in this race. So he rocked up to the start line, dressed in galoshes, boots, an overall, and a hat on his head. And everyone thought he was lost, because he wasn't dressed like runners expected a runner to be dressed like. And they said to him, "What gives you the right to think that you can compete in this race?" He says, "Well, I don't have any horses on my farm, so all my life I've been running after my sheep and cows." Well, that's how he stayed in shape. Well, this 61-year-old farmer, Cliff Young, he didn't only finish the race, he won it against the world's best ultramarathon runners. In fact, that's not even why I'm telling you it. He beat them by a whole day and a half. He took a day and a half off the world record. Now, how did he do it? Well, it wasn't that Cliff was faster than the other athletes. It was the fact that this 61-year-old farmer didn't know that you were supposed to sleep. So while the other athletes slept after their 18-hour run, Cliff kept running. But they said, "It's impossible, the guy will die." He was too far ahead for anyone to tell him. I mean, you run like that, for another 6 hours, who's going to be with you? But he broke the world record by quite a bit. And here's the thing. Just imagine you're a pro athlete about to start this race, and you see the 61-year-old farmer dressed like he is rocking up to the start line. What are you thinking? Of course you're thinking the guy's lost. You think he's a joke. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have much to offer. Anything like that would be appropriate thoughts that you might have. And you completely write him off from being a serious contender in the race. But while you're still running, you get news from the finish line that the 61-year-old farmer has won. That he's beaten the rest of the field by a day and a half. Now what are you thinking? And just think of human nature. That'll give you an idea. The guy said, he's cheated. There's no way he could have won. He's cheated. Are you sure his wife didn't pick him up and drive him to the finish line? And then you hear, no, he ran. We had the cameras on him the whole time. But here's the thing. He didn't sleep. I told you he cheated. You're supposed to sleep. You see, one thing we hate as human beings is to be wrong. We hate it. It makes us feel uncomfortable. It makes us begin questioning our sense of value. We think about how others may think less of us if we could be wrong. And we just hate it. And just like those professional runners, we'll find every excuse in the book not to be wrong. And it's right there that our pride steps up. And as Trevor said, we embrace it. And we get on our high horse and we go, "No, man, you're supposed to sleep. The guy cheated." And you'll find fault with the advice that you get from others. You won't listen to people. And you'll push away learning that might actually be beneficial for you, but you'll push it away because it's uncomfortable to accept it. And that's called pride. Do you know that the following year in which they ran this race in Australia, no one slept? And although Cliff Young entered, he got injured and he didn't finish. But they broke his record because they'd had time to actually think about it sanely. They obviously practiced it sometime during the year and realized, actually, you can run the whole way. Jesus said in John chapter 8, verse 32, that the truth will set us free. But sometimes it's the absence of the truth that sets us free. When I say that, I'm not talking about Jesus' truth. I'm talking about our truth. That which we call truth. That which we see as being like the truth of run 18 and sleep for 6 and then run 18 and sleep. That was someone's truth. That was a running fraternity's truth of the way you did an ultramarathon. And then you operate according to that truth and you wonder why you don't have freedom. In your worship of Jesus, how can you discover a truth, Jesus' truth, for you that does have the power to set you free? Sometimes we don't come into truth with one another because we're so desperately scared of being wrong or not matching up that we pridefully defend and hold on to our truth, and then we never see any other way. What about Proverbs 13, verse 10? Pride only breeds quarrels, but wisdom is found in those who take advice. Let me say it again. Pride only breeds quarrels, but wisdom is found in those who take advice. How do you think this verse contributes to our discussion on fellowship? Good fellowship doesn't mean that we need to always do what people tell us. But it does mean that we need to get pride out of the way long enough in order to at least hear what they're trying to tell us, what they're trying to say to us. I'd like to press pause again for a moment and talk a bit about how you think pride impacts our ability to do the elements of fellowship, discipleship, ministry, and missions. The kind of things I want you to expose are what will be the results if you're always defending yourself and never receiving correction from the people around you. How's that going to affect fellowship? What happens if you believe that you've arrived and there's nothing more that you need to learn? How effective will that make you as a disciple? How effective will your discipleship be if you carry that truth within you? What if you believe you're better than the rest in ministry? And in a particular ministry team, you always consider yourself as being better than everyone else. What type of problems might that cause? You can see where I'm going, can't you? What will be the results of going out on a mission, but feeling that you're better than the people that you're going to minister to? How will that impact mission? Stop now for a moment and just talk about that. Try and see how pride can get in the way of the way we operate and all of those things, and take us to a point where we really miss Jesus' truth because we're too busy operating on our truth. Okay. Okay, so I imagine that took some time just to discuss that. Now I'd like to work with this. What is the antidote to our pride? How do we operate more fully in the truth that God has for us that will absolutely set us free and allow us to really live? And it's humility. Be humble. If it really is all about the heart, then we need to have humble hearts to accept what people are saying to us. And for the rest of your time together, I'd like you to go back to those 5 elements and address What would those things look like if you had to introduce the character of humility into those 5 areas? Worship, fellowship, discipleship, ministry, and mission. Who would you listen to? And I'd like you to look at Psalm 131 and see what you can adopt for your life from that psalm that will be as an antidote to the pride that can so easily grip our hearts. And I find that it's something we need to take hold of moment by moment. My girls can come to me and they can say something about my life that is difficult to hear. And I want to say, the thoughts that go on in my head while they're speaking, but I'm the father. They can't teach me. They can't talk to me like that. They can't teach me stuff like that. But if I listen to them, if I really hear, I think it's uncomfortable, but they've got a point. And you know, when I listen, when I really hear them, it not only benefits me, it benefits us as a family. I can learn from my girls. Might not be comfortable, but I can learn from them. Also, I want you to do this. I want you to particularly look at the concept I spoke about, where I said, and this was in the message I gave on Sunday night, where I said that it's okay to be wrong. It's just not okay to stay like that. And I want you to use the passage of John chapter 8, verses 3 to 11. It's where the Pharisees bring the lady who was caught in adultery to Jesus to see what he will do. And Jesus says to them first, he who has no sin, you cast the first stone. What Jesus is doing is making them own where they're at, own their part. And then he says to the woman, once all the people have gone, who's accusing you? He says, there's no one here, Lord. And Jesus says, neither do I condemn you. Neither do I condemn you. Because in John chapter 12, verse 47, Jesus says, I did not come to condemn the world, but to save it. And so, it's okay to be wrong. We're all wrong as human beings. It's exactly why Jesus came. But it's not okay to stay like that. And if we're not going to, in order to not stay like that, we need to be listening to God. We need to be listening to those around us who are wanting to help us, who have input to bring into our lives. But if we're going to do that, we need to govern the pride that will step up and say, either bring all the excuses, or you can't talk to me like that, or make the excuses of why our truth is something acceptable to walk with. I want you to discuss that. It'll be a profitable discussion, I think. And then just close the evening with prayer. I hope you've enjoyed your time tonight. God bless.